Ooh, that looks tasty.
All right, gathered around. Remember how I said that this whole adventuring thing was just academic? How we were just gonna see how amazing we could be in theory? No real danger? Yeah, I was lying. It's time to go adventuring.
Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we are talking about Role Player Adventures, designed by Keith Mateka and James Ryan, and published by Thunderworks Games. And I do apologize if I mispronounced any of those names. Now, before I get started, please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that's where you'll find the correction. And what Role Player Adventures is it is a choose-your-own-style adventure game in which you and up to 3 other characters are adventuring around through various story books. And I will say now that there may be some spoilers, minor spoilers about the 5th adventure, which is the one I have set up right here as we go through, but I will keep those to a minimum. But you may want to skip ahead if you're concerned about that. And you're moving through these different storybooks, and you have a map here that's going to be telling you where it is in each location, each storybook that you are, and you'll be flipping through these books and reading different passages and making various choices as you go on through there, which will affect you as you go through the game. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played, and so we'll jump into my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk briefly about how this game works. So the first thing to know is each player will have their own character. And you are able to import characters from the base game of Role Player, which is what I've done here. And you're going to have the basic stats that you have, a space for stamina that you can use over here, and then your fatigue over here. And then, of course, your particular class and class ability you will have additionally there. Then, if you have the expansion, which is this huge, big old fat book here, that is also going to allow you to add in your character's personal backstory. Though since I don't have a lot of characters, I'm using 2 different backstories. So that particular dwarf you saw is also an aristocrat and a gatekeeper. And what the expansion is, just simply gives you information about your backstory as you go through. But what's going to happen is you're going to move around on these maps. And as you go to each location, as I said, it's going to give you some story. And you'll see here, these are experience points here that you'll be using as you track along with your party here, your party sheet, and you'll have some factions you're tracking. You have a space for a bunch of titles that you can get, and as you can see, I'm not going to show them all to you, but show you the fronts. There's a whole bunch of titles I've been earning through the game that affects the story as you go. But you're also going to be tracking your XP and the gold that you happen to have, because you're going to be using that to, as you can guess, level up yourself through the game. But as you go to each location, you'll get a bit of a story, and if there's an XP, you're usually going to take that XP and you'll have the beginning of that location. Then from there on after, you'll have different events that'll happen. In addition to that, you're going to be collecting different cards as you go through that you'll be able to try to use in each of the different locations. And again, the storybook will tell you exactly what happens if I tried to use, say, the skeleton key up here in the Chow Hall. It'll do something different than if I try to use a skeleton key over here in the guard room. But the core of the game is going to be various dice tests that you are faced with. So, for example, you may, as you move around, encounter one of these random events. You'll go to the book, and the book's going to tell you that you are going to fight a horrible basilisk. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check my party sheet and find out that I'm able to have 5 different dice in this particular fight. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my character sheet here. And as I look here, you'll see that I know I need a green die. And if I look at my character sheet, I can spend some of my stamina to pick the different dice that I'm going to use. So let's say I'm going to do that to get a green die, and I'm going to do that to get a red die. And so I'll start out with these 2 dice. And as I said, at the time that I'm facing this basilisk, we'll just pretend that I have a 5 dice limit. Then I would go into the bag here and I would draw 3 more dice, like so. Then I would go through, I would roll my dice and see if I can cover any of these up. Well, luckily for me, I can cover that one up and I can cover that one up. But we'll see here that I don't have any way to cover up that red one or that purple one. But my particular character will have all of these different cards that I have, and I'll be able to play some of them throughout the game. And so as I'm looking here, as I'm flipping through, I see that I need to get to that red 3. I have a black 3, but here I have this proud trait, so I can take any color die that I want and then make it into a red or a blue. So I can play this card and turn this black into a green and cover that one up. But now, of course, I'm stuck with that purple there. And so what I'll do is maybe I'll play my Scorch Phoenix, which lets me add one of these dice here, which is both a pink and a white. So I take that and I roll it, and I got a 5. So that's not good for me at the moment. So I would have missed it, but we can pretend that I'd rolled a 4 and I would get to cover it and I would have won the fight. However, let's just assume that I was unable to cover that last one. Then this little cube here would move up to the next spot and I would do it all again. And then it would go to a third round where we would be here. And if it got to there, I would take 3 fatigue damage. And at any point, if your fatigue equals your health there, then you are exhausted. If everybody's exhausted, then you have to go into the book of encounters and find out what happens, and I assume if you lose enough times, then you are simply dead. However, there are also times when you are not fighting. You are doing something else. Maybe you're trying to convince somebody of something, or maybe you're trying to simply force something open, or maybe you're trying to pick a lock, or. And then you're going to go into the skill book, and you'll see what you're looking for. And so, I don't know, we'll stop right there with persuasion. So now we're going to assume that I'm trying to persuade somebody. And the book's going to tell you what it is that you need. And so we'll assume that it says a persuasion 1 check. It tells you right there you're going to have 4 dice. And just like you did before, you can use your stamina to select certain dice, or you can just pull out the bag at random. Here we have 4 dice. And so I will just pull 4 at random. Here we go. And I would roll them, and I would again do the exact same thing, trying to make sure I can get my dice to the right numbers that I need. And so perhaps I can do a flip of a die with 1, I can cover that, and then maybe I can also flip this other die like that, and then maybe I have the ability to change this die into a red one, and I can also increase it by 1. Oh my gosh, there I've covered it. I've gotten 2 experience, and I have succeeded. Now, there will be times when you succeed, there will be times when you don't succeed, but either way, the story will continue. And as you're moving through the story, you'll be getting new cards, new items that you'll be buying with your gold. Sometimes you'll find things, and you'll be getting a whole bunch of these titles as you go through. Now, the titles themselves give you a little bit of a reminder of what it is you did to earn them, but more importantly, what's going to happen is as you go through, sometimes you'll go to a place and it'll say, if you have this title, go to this other entry instead, because everything you do has an effect on the story. And so you're going to play through, trying not to die, getting stronger and stronger, discovering the story until you get to the end of the storybook. And at the end of the storybook, based on whatever titles you've gotten, you'll get different bits of story again, and then you'll move on to the next one. I believe there's a total of 11 stories plus 1 side quest that you can do. But really, that's how this game works. So, what do I like about this game? The first thing is, it is pure dice chucking goodness. That's pretty much all you're doing. Pretty much every choice that you make, everything that you do is going to result in some kind of dice check, be it combat or a skill check. That's what's going to be happening, and I love rolling dice. However, along with that, I enjoy the deck building aspects of this as you're building up your deck of cards that you're going to be using to then mitigate the dice rolls so it's not pure chaos. I've found that pretty much whatever you roll, unless you haven't rested in a while, you're going to always be able to at least get close. And that to me is always fun. Yes, it is possible simply to draw out of the bag stuff that just isn't going to work. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. So I really enjoy that. I also really like how this synergizes with Role Player itself. I've always said that Role Player is a neat game, but it just feels more like an exercise. I mean, it's a competition, but it just feels like an exercise. And I never get to do anything with the characters. Yes, the monsters and minions let you do a little bit with the characters, but not a ton. And so the fact that this now lets me make a character there, bring it in here, and then use it is fantastic. I also am really enjoying the story. Now, I have not finished the whole thing. I am about 60% through, enough of the way through to where I feel like I understand what is going on. But I'm enjoying the story. I'm enjoying, it's not a huge in-depth story, but I am enjoying the bits and the different paths that I'm following as I'm figuring out what is going on. And I'm starting to have my suspicions, and I'm starting to wonder if I've made the right choices as far as my character's morality and things like that. All of that I think is really, really well done. I also think the production is pretty darn good. I am amazed at just how fast it is to set this game up and to put it away, considering the size of the box and considering the amount of cards and things that are in there. But it is really, really streamlined. The scenario books, the adventure books are just very easy to read, very easy to flip through. Just all of that is fantastically done. And then along with that, I also really like the expansion that allows you to use the alignments, the backstories that you're familiar with if you played regular role player. It's not actually in the core box. I think that's, well, it would make the core box more expensive, but honestly, I think it is something you absolutely need to have, you absolutely want to have, because the amount of added time and complexity that it adds to the game is very low, but the enjoyment that I've been getting out of those backstories is huge. So I think absolutely it's a great thing to be in there. I love the way it works, and I love how easy it is to add on, and it really doesn't add any lifting, but it just adds enjoyment, which I think is also fantastic. But really, so what I'm saying is, I like this game. I think everything about the way it plays is wonderful. I think it's doing a very good job of really focusing on 2 out of the 3 words in the name, right? Roll, you're checking dice all the time, and adventure. You're having an adventure. You're going through this choose your own adventure thing, which I think is great. And I particularly love how you can go back to an area, and it's set up to where when you go back for a second time, it's going to be different. And you can start going to different areas, gathering things, coming back, and then trying to put these things together. It reminds me of playing the old Secret of Monkey Island or the Curse of Monkey Island games, where you have these things, you're going, how do I combine these things together? But it's done something very clever in that by using most of these items, it's going to fatigue you a little bit, which means you can't just take everything and kind of like try to smash it all together in hopes that you're going to find something that works. Well, you can, but you're going to wind up fatiguing yourself. And then sometimes you do things and it's almost like the book knows, why are you doing that? That is incredibly stupid. Here's a penalty for being dumb. And I love that. And then the last thing that I'll say is, I really do like how fast each adventure plays. It really doesn't take too long to play through an adventure. Now, I've only been playing this solo, though I've been playing it solo with 2 different characters, and I think it plays very quickly for what it is, and I really do enjoy that. So, what are my quibbles with the game? The first one is going to come back to the production, and this is one that doesn't affect me at all, but it might affect you. I do not see how you play this game if you are colorblind. All the dice are based on what colors they are, and then when you're doing combat or the skill checks, the pages have these little, the dice on there, and it shows what color they need to be. And if my understanding of color blindness is at all accurate, some of those things will be very, very hard to tell apart. So I think that's a little bit of a miss. How they would fix that, I don't know, but I think that's a little bit of a bummer and something to be aware of if you are colorblind before you go out and buy this game. Look at some pictures and see if it's something that's going to mess with you. The next thing I'll say to be aware of is it's a dice game. Even though there's a ton of mitigation in there, and I enjoy the mitigation, I enjoy the chucking of the dice, it is possible to simply draw out of the bag, if you're not using your stamina or you've already used all your stamina, a bunch of dice that are the wrong color, and you can't do anything with them. Or it is possible to simply roll all the numbers that you roll. None of them match or are close to what you need. And so suddenly, yeah, you can flip it, but then you're still a number away. So then you actually have to spend 2 cards to get 1 die where it needs to be. And so there are times when you can roll the dice and you just cannot do it. Now the game allows you to fail forward, so I don't find that to be a problem, but that might bother you, so just be aware of that. The next thing that I'll say is, along with the failing forward, I don't know that it's possible to completely fail. Now it does have a tracker for how many times everyone has been exhausted, and if it has space for 10, so I'm assuming if you get exhausted 10 times, then you've completely lost. I don't know, because I haven't gotten close to that yet. But I don't know that you can stop. So that's just something to have in mind. This is a fail-forward game. And so if that bothers you, be aware of that. Like, it's just don't fail, right? And the last thing that I will say that is a quibble for me is, and well, I think it's okay, but just something to be aware of. There is a story-based game, so once you know the story, that might take away some of the replay value for you. Now, I definitely feel like I will be able to go back and play this game again and make some different choices and support different factions more than I have in this game rather than the other one, have different backstories, and it will be a different experience. And I will probably get a bit of a different story somewhat, but the overarching story is still the overarching story. Will I be able to go back a third time and feel like I have a unique experience? I don't know. Now, I also don't know if that matters because it is a lot of story. It's probably a 20, 30-hour campaign, so that might be enough. But just be aware, this is a heavily story-based game, which means you're going to know the story, and even though you can make different choices, you may already know what's coming, and that might not be for you. So there you have it, folks. That is Role Player Adventures. I think this game is really fun. I'm really enjoying it. It's actually given new life to Role Player itself for me, which is something I was considering moving on from, but now I want to hold on to that. And all in all, I think it's a very, very fun game, and it's definitely the best thing that Thunderworks has put out, in my opinion, and I'm very excited for expansions if they come out, especially if the expansions that come out are just more little storybooks and I can use stuff I already have. I would buy so many of those. So many of those. So I think if you're someone that enjoys dice chucking and you like to choose your own adventure and you like deck building, then I think this is a no-brainer. It's something you will absolutely enjoy. So, as always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with a timestamp and I'll get that into the Klingon subtitles. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.